Hello, everybody. Thanks for staying. I think you're going to enjoy this talk with Judy Deleo today. She's talking about proactive seniors and how some of us are aging, some of us are not so much, but how we might move into the next phase of our life. She talks about finding places to go. She talks about helping us stay at home and all kinds of things in between. So I would just like to introduce Judy Deleo to you. And I hope I pronounced that right, did I? Deleo, sorry. Anyway, thanks for coming. And I have brochures, so I'm just going to pass them all out while she speaks. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, I don't want to be behind anything here, so hi, I'm Judy. I'll take a brief moment to tell you a little bit about myself. Well, it's the shortest version I can have. So I have been in the beautiful world of helping seniors and their families for 21 years now. And Kathy Mendham is the owner of Proactive Seniors. She started Proactive Seniors in 2016 after experiencing a lot of challenges with her own father, having some health changes. And she found that that even though as a background being a physiotherapist and being in the health field, that it was such a struggle to find the services and the resources that she ultimately was able to get him connected with. So she thought, this is crazy. We need to have an easier way for people to access the information and the resources. So that's how she started Proactive Seniors. And I was working in a retirement residence in the Northwest at the time, and she came in to tell the marketing person about Proactive Seniors. And I instantly loved her, and I loved the service. And I very quickly, shortly after I met her, I reached out and said I'd love to join her. And so we have a fabulous team now, and I'll explain a little bit more about our services. I hope so. There we go. Whoops. Oh, it had a runaway. Oh, look at that. I'm done. No, just kidding. Did you guys catch that? Okay. So we have three main services. We have our proactive planning service. That's when people are saying, we want to stay home, whatever that takes. What are all the things that we're going to need in order to stay at home? And our planning service is headed up by Kathy and her planning team, and it's incredible. She was saying she averages about 3 months of working through that process with a family and bringing them all the information and assigning the tasks and getting everything figured out on how someone's going to stay at home. Then there's our housing support. It is a part of the conversation when someone is planning to stay at home. And that is, it becomes kind of a, well, what if, right? What if it's not possible to stay home any longer? And so the housing is part of the planning, but also it's its own thing, because sometimes people just say, you know what, we need to learn about the housing options, and we're ready for that. Then there's our third service, dementia coaching. My fabulous colleague, Heather, that's her specialty. She's taken a lot of training and certification, and dementia coaching is part of our service. It could be with that coaching that maybe it's a little bit in the beginning. It could be that there's someone with a new diagnosis of dementia, and people are wondering, like, now what? It could be that caregiving spouse, and they're concerned, right? This wasn't part of the plan. So they want to understand what their journey might be like, and Heather is a fabulous guide and coach through someone's journey. I can't get trigger happy with this. I have to wait. Pause, talk, get a head start. No. Come on. You can do it. Do I have to go? Oh, there we go. So this is just really quickly. Most of our team here, we have a wide variety of backgrounds and experience, and backgrounds being physio, senior housing, home care, pharmacy, nursing, gerontology. And we cover, I'll say, Calgary and surrounding area, Edmonton, Red Deer. I had a client once, I was working with him, and he said, I might want to move to Kamloops because I have a cousin in Kamloops. Maybe I'll go there. Can you help me with that? And I'm like, sure, okay. So, because we do know the questions to ask. So when, many times we've done the research and gathered information in a town or a city that is not part of our area, and so we're happy to do that. Am I going to go Kessa? Next slide, please. This is hesitating. Okay. So in considering whether or not you want to stay at home or whether or not, to consider making a move, there's the start of those thoughts and ideas. And, it could be that what you need to do is identify your goals. What are your goals and wishes? And and then also thinking about your concerns and the worries, like, is it a worry, being at home? Is it getting more difficult? Are there things to consider? And, we say all the time, it's so worth the planning and the conversations and the consideration in advance of needing that. Because I can tell you in my many years of doing this, that the hardest part is, people will say, no, we want to stay home, not going to move, no way, not going to one of those places. And then something changes and you find yourself in a situation where you have to decide about a place where there's more support, more care in place. And it is really hard. So when we see people that maybe gather the information, maybe tour a few places, learn about what's out there, what places are like, then they're armed with that information. Whereas if something happens, like I know that you would know someone who would experience everything's going along great. All is fine. There's a fall. Fall lands them in the hospital. The hospital says, you can't go home. You need to be somewhere with more care. And in that moment, emotions are running high and you're trying to make a decision in crisis mode. And that's really hard. We can't say enough how worth it is to not be afraid to gather the information. I was thinking many times throughout Reverend Bill's talk today on those little moments and snippets that I know in my experience that apply to when people are out there. They're scared and overwhelmed at making a decision. They're not wanting, they may think they need to move one day, then they look around their home they've lived in for 40, 50 years, and they're like, oh my goodness, where do I even start? And then they'll be like, I can't do it. And it's overwhelming. So that's the continual hesitation, right? Kessa, do I need to, oh, there we go. So, some of the considerations when it does come to whether or not you move or whether you stay home is, why would you make that move? Where would that be? Where would you think of going? And then maybe when? What would the timing be that would work well for you? And how is this all going to happen? I will continue later, but there's incredible resources that can make that move or even staying at home very easy because there's so many resources out there. Then what are all the things that you need to do in order to make this kind of decision and work through the process? and who are the people that are going to help you. And I can assure you, there's so many resources out there for you. Oh, I knew it. I can't read that. Okay, switching gears here. So here's some of the signs that additional help would be needed, okay? One is discharge from acute care. For sure you know that if you end up in the hospital, Alberta Health Services, transition services in the hospital are going to talk to you about their process, what they have. So their assisted living and their long-term care is now called Type B and Type A. You'll see the slide in a little bit. But they're going to talk to you about what your options are. They do an assessment. They determine, do you need Type B, do you need Type A, and they're going to present you with a list of all the buildings in the city that have that level of care. And we're getting a mixed bag of what transition services is telling you, but most common is, here's the list. You're going to go to first available bed, but we'll take your top 3 choices, and we want that in 48 hours. And most often, people have not had any experience with any of those locations. So they're looking at this list, and they're thinking, well, how can I give my top 3? I know nothing about them. So that is also something that we can help you with for sure. Difficulty, whoops, didn't want to go yet. So difficulty with personal hygiene or grooming. Again, these are signs to consider when help is needed, whether it's help in the home or the consideration to make a move. It could be medications getting mixed up or forgotten or lost. It can be really easy to drop a pill that rolls under the cupboard, and then, you're kind of like, if you know that it dropped, then getting down there to get it is a whole journey on its own. And, or often it just gets missed and you don't notice it at all. Falls, mobility challenges, navigating stairs in the home. Those are all signs that maybe considering somewhere that's going to be safer, where you're not dealing with stairs. Poor nutrition. I have seen this a lot over my time, both compromised nutrition as well as hydration. I've seen someone not drink enough water, they get a bit dizzy, causes the fall. The fall breaks the hip and they're in the hospital, and now they can't go home. And it can be traced back to not enough water and dehydration. Socialization, that's a big one. So when somebody's feeling lonely and isolated in their home, especially when mobility starts to impact whether or not you can get out of your home easily. And I mean, our crazy weather, if we're having a blizzard that lasts a week here, that could mean a week that you can't get out and get your groceries. You're not out socializing or going to activities, or even getting to appointments. I've seen people call and cancel their appointment because the weather's bad, and it may or may not impact their well-being at that time. Having help in the home, so having some needing help in the home and not having it can be an impact as well. Giving up your license, that's a really hard thing. It's really scary when people are giving up their license and now knowing how much it's going to impact their independence. This next one, respite for the primary caregiver, is huge. There is a percentage, it's almost 50%, where the primary caregiver, if they're caring for a spouse, has a significant health event because of the stress and just trying to care for their loved one. And so this is a conversation we have all the time with people, is to please, as a caregiver, please consider your own health and your well-being and ask for that support, because if you go down, that person you're caring for, they're in trouble, right? So please consider taking good care of yourself. Memory loss and the way that that can impact how a person is managing at home is certainly a sign. Exercises, and then, the palliative support to stay at home as well. Okay, let's see, switching, okay. So there are different types of home care. So there are companions. They may not have that healthcare training, but they can be fabulous. Somebody that could come in and do a load of laundry and take you to the grocery store and take you for coffee or to go meet a friend and to help in so many ways. There are healthcare aides that are certified and that can help with personal care tasks. There's skilled nursing care. There's specialized care, so wound care, dementia, and palliative support. And then the various providers, there are volunteers that can do that. There are private hires, so that could be hiring someone who's not part of an agency. And then there are fabulous private care agencies, and then as well there's AHS home care. Okay, so this is something that's just only a couple of years old. I don't know how many of you might be familiar. Client-directed home care. So what we found is that AHS, thank goodness, has found this way to fill this gap where it's helping people stay home longer. They're getting more hours per week of care and support than they had before. So AHS home care, so just home care by itself, you would reach out to an AHS case manager, request an assessment to determine how many hours for home care. And so that home care person might pop in for a shower assist or medication, help with dressing, they're in and they're out and they're gone. And then they started this client-directed care. So that same case manager, he or she will come in, and they'll do an assessment and determine how many hours per week that the person needing the care would be eligible for. And so let's say it's 12 hours a week to start with. Then the person hires someone from a private agency that is one of the approved vendors, and pretty much all of them are, and they will hire that agency, and what they're finding is through client-directed care, it's way more consistent. Because with AHS home care, let's say you had someone coming in every morning to give you medication, and there could be 7 different people coming in on those 7 different mornings, and as well as the range of time. They might say, we'll be here between 7 and 9. And it could be 6:45 one day and 9:30 the next and 8 o'clock the next day. And so people wrestle with that quite a bit. With client-directed care, when you hire a private agency, you have that consistency. So if it's determined that what's helpful is 8 till 10 every morning, they're going to be there at 8 and they're going to stay till 10 and they're going to help you with a whole bunch of stuff. So that program has turned out to be incredibly beneficial. With that too, with the client-directed care, AHS through Alberta Blue Cross is paying about $34 an hour towards that hourly cost with the private agency. And what we're finding, so say an agency charges $40 an hour, which is the average, AHS covers $34, and you would be paying $6 per hour out of pocket. But we're finding a lot of the agencies are matching that. So people aren't even paying that extra few bucks. But the beauty of it too is that, let's say you were approved for 12 hours and you decided, this is working fabulous. Like, I want some extra help here. You can just add the extra hours. You may pay the full hourly rate, but the consistency of the person and the flow and the support is so much better, and that time can increase. And we're finding that this service and the ability to add some hours if needed are helping people stay at home a lot longer. So it's a fabulous service. Kessa? Okay. I was pretty much covering that already. So the benefits of using a private agency through that client-directed care is the consistency. There's more options. There's more flexibility. You are able to adjust those hours. I know someone who had client-directed care, and she had a couple of days where she had 2 hours a day, and then she had another day where it was 6 hours. And that was the day that allowed her to get out. She would go get her hair done and go for lunch with friends. And there was somebody there at home with her husband for a longer period of time that gave her that respite break, that 1 day a week. Kessa? Yep. So often people are resistant to home care, and one of them is that, I don't want someone coming and doing stuff for me. It's stealing my independence. And you know what? It's preserving and helping you hang on to that independence, right? Like, these are things that if they make life easier and they help you stay home safe and healthy, then it's giving you back. It could be giving you back that time and energy for doing things you love. It's going to help you preserve that independence. I have to give you this example. I met with a lady a few years ago, and we were discussing having someone help at home, and she was like, "I do my own housework." And I'm like, okay. And so as we kept talking, though, she eventually said, well, when I vacuum, then I'm in bed for the rest of the day because it just hurts my back too much, and I love to knit, but I can't knit because my back hurts because I vacuumed. I'm like, well, how about if somebody else vacuums for you and then you can knit, you can do what you like, right? So she was kind of like, okay, good point. People don't like having strangers in the house, and that's valid. And I have to say, it's often someone with cognitive decline that is the most resistant. They're struggling to have that logic and that reasoning at that stage. And so it's harder. But, I've seen, countless in all my years, the fabulous way that having someone come in and help. And when it's consistent and you get to know them, then it becomes almost a friendship. Like, there's a comfort level of that person coming in to help. And it makes a huge difference. Cost is certainly important to consider. Private agencies average about $40 an hour. And when someone's trying to consider, well, maybe I'll stay at home, and when I need lots, I'll just have help 24/7. But if you do the math, it's over $30,000 a month to have a private agency at $40 an hour do 24/7. It's not impossible, but the budget might put up a bit of an argument with you there, right? So some strategies to try if you know of somebody who's struggling to accept some help. Certainly a big one is listening to the concerns. We find with our planning service, when we're discussing with a senior and their family, we try and get everybody together and talk about, okay, let's just figure out all the supports. And so often we find, that the parents have their feelings. The adult children are they're kind of like, come on, Mom, you need to move. And the mom's like, hold on a sec. And so there's a lot of friction. But then we've also learned where we have a family discussion and the kids walk away going, I had no idea Mom and Dad felt like that. I didn't know that was a concern for them. And then the parents also start to understand that the concerns the adult children are having and the pushiness they might be feeling is coming from love. And, it's hard. So it's so worth it to listen to everybody's concerns and feelings. Discovering the pros and cons. There's certainly a lot of things to weigh the decision when deciding, do I stay home? Do I make a move? So it's worth that conversation to work through those pros and cons. and helping to ensure that all the family are on the same page. You know, options, there are options as far as caregivers, there's options for agencies, there's options for ways to try. Anything that we're trying, whether it is trying a service at home, you can try it. Often we've said to people, just give it a try. You don't have to commit. You're not signing a contract to say, well, now I've got you for the next year. Great. You know, you can try it for a little bit and then make changes and tweak it or end it. Starting slow is worth it. Like you might think, okay, my mom needs somebody there every single day. And that person is like, whoa, I'm not having someone come in every single day. But starting off slow once or twice a week and building up to it helps them adjust. And then over time, it becomes something that they really look forward to. Next slide. So timing is important, certainly something worth to consider. Getting help before it's critical, if it means help at home before something happens, or you know, whether or not it is deciding to make that move. We really want people to, you know, to understand what's out there so that avoiding accidents or hospital admissions. Another thing we're seeing a lot is readmission. The hospital gets you in and out. They want their bed back, and so they're sending people home. They're saying a case manager will be out maybe next week because they're notorious for a Friday 4:30 discharge. And so they'll say, we'll get a case manager out, and then that person goes home, and there's a very hazardous time frame before that help is in place. And we're seeing a lot of hospital readmissions because people are coming home too soon. And that's where potentially a private agency can build or bridge that gap until AHS is in place, if home care is what you've decided will be the best option for you. Considering timing is also something that sometimes, well, very often helps preserve family relationships. We had an example. A daughter was helping mom, and mom kept saying, no, I don't want anybody coming to the house. If I need anything, my daughter will help me. And the daughter was frazzled. She had her kids, and she had a full-time job, and she was doing these tasks for mom. So we sat down and figured out the daughter was averaging 30 hours a week of tasks that she was doing for her mom on top of a full-time job and her kids. And so then when mom realized that much time was invested in her, she was like, whoa, okay, yes, I'll have help. And that gave back that relationship between the two of them, because now the daughter could, you know, pick her up and say, hey, let's go for lunch, because those tasks and things on the to-do list were taken care of. Enjoying the support. Well, I had already said, if you had some help at home, it does become something you really look forward to, because life's going to be easier. You get to know your companion, and then it does, again, leave you energy to do other things. Next slide. So, making a move. Next slide. When is it time to consider a senior living community? It can be a tricky thing to know for sure, but sort of shopping around and gathering the information makes a big difference. So here are some reasons that people do decide to move. They're not eating properly. You know, we get tired of cooking, maybe cooking for one. We call it the tea and toast trap, because so many people, if they just make a cup of tea and have a piece of toast, and if that takes the hunger away, then they're fine. And over time, though, you know, compromised nutrition is going to impact your health. When you're no longer driving or feeling isolated, that's a huge one. I have vibrant, independent, energetic seniors who decide to move into an independent living building because there's activities going on and the bus is taking them on outings, and there's a Red Seal chef that's cooking dinner. And, you know, lots of people will say it's like living on a cruise ship. You know, they can go out and do all the things they love to do and come home and sit down, and the chef has made dinner, and you know, all of those things that they enjoy are right there. So we find that a lot. I mean, I would sign up for the no more cooking. I would do that pretty quick. The home is unsafe. This is another thing to consider. I'm working with a couple right now, and she just keeps falling down the stairs. Like, how she hasn't had that final hospital stay that says you can't go home, I don't know, but they're just trying to hang in there, but she's falling all the time, and it's just really hard, and they've still been resistant to making a move to a place that, you know, would help her stay safe. Maintenance and housekeeping is a big one. Home maintenance, you know, that can be hard, and yes, you bet, there are services, there are people and resources that can come and do that. But I had someone recently say, you know what, I'm going to move now because my house is old enough. I want to go now before it's replace the furnace time and the hot water tank. And they're kind of going, you know what, those upgrades are coming real soon, and I'm going before they're needed. The cost and complexity of care, I mentioned that. You know, you can have a private agency come in and help you stay home longer, but there does come a time when there are so many hours required for that care at home that if that's getting hard for the budget, then it could be a time to consider making a move. It could be just the inflation and the expenses of running a home. And it could be family caregiver burnout. You know, I'll try not to harp on that, but I'll tell you that's a big one. And then lifestyle. I know I worked in an independent retirement residence, and our people there had a blast, and they loved it. And sometimes when people wait so long, that end up for the wrong reasons, or I don't know if I can explain that right. But, you know, they stay at home so long that now they want that lifestyle, and it's too late. They're going into a place with a high level of care, and their own abilities mean they just can't engage in the activities, and things are harder. And I can tell you, I know, of course I know why people love to stay at home, and we're all for that. But I'll tell you, there's some really fun independent living senior communities out there. So it is possible that you can go there and enjoy that and have a lot of fun. Next slide. So some of the challenges, of course, overwhelmed. People are overwhelmed with the choices out there. They're overwhelmed. Well, I already mentioned, they take a look around in their home and they're like, oh, I don't even know where to start. And that can be a reason that stops people in their tracks. There's fabulous services for that. There's downsizing companies, which, I mean, I've seen them in action. I'll tell you a quick story about one. When I worked at the retirement residence, the downsizer lady, the client was moving from the deep, deep south and up to where I was working up in the far northwest to be close to her son. And she was by herself, and the son was busy, so she hired a downsizing company. And before she made the move, they had worked together, and that lady was in total control the whole time, but the downsizer did the work. You know, like today, let's tackle the closets. And so they would decide, you know, things to sell, things to donate, things to recycle. If there was anything that needed to go to the garbage, like the downsizer handled all of it. Then before the move, the downsizer actually came to me and said, can I have a floor plan of the suite? I want to do measurements. So she knew exactly what that space was the lady was moving into. Then on moving day, this is my favorite part, moving day, 9 o'clock in the morning, she'd already been there. I went to the suite to see how she was doing. And she was putting things away. The bathrobe was hanging on the bathroom door, and you know, she was unloading a few things. And then her moving team came in just before lunch, and then the client came in and had lunch. And then at 2 p.m., so it's moving day, 2 p.m., her and I go up to her suite, and there were a couple of flattened moving boxes in the hallway, leaning up against the wall. Walked into the suite, and there was nothing in that suite told us it was moving day. Pictures are hung on the wall. The bed is made, everything's put away, and it was 2 p.m. on moving day. And all she had to do was just embrace it and enjoy it. And then they also went back to the house, the moving team, or the downsizer, and they finished emptying, which was all pre-arranged and sorted with the client. And then they did the final clean and to hand the keys over to the realtor because the house had sold. So they handled everything. And so we have countless stories like that, how a company like that makes such a huge difference. The downsizing distress, that's a big one, right? It is hard to part with things. So that makes it difficult. But when you know that your new space can be filled with your treasures and your favorite pictures on the wall and your favorite quilt is on the bed, and then you are going to be in that familiar space. It's new to adjust to new setting, of course, but that is a big one, and it needs some time and processing to work through. Another challenge is putting it off too long. When you do put it off too long, then it is that much harder, whether it's your health, your energy, right? Just all of us know what the energy is needed to make a move. So the more supports that you have, the better. And then guilt. Guilt is also a big one, and it's often from the family, right? Like mom or dad has said, I'm not moving, please don't make me move. I don't want to move, I want to stay here. And everybody's making promises. Don't worry, we won't do that. And so if something happens and it does need to change, then it's really, really hard. And caregivers and family members feel really guilty about that. It's a struggle. So communication is so important. Next slide. So here's some categories of housing and who pays for them. So I don't know if it's hard to read, but in the top left, independent living are self-contained apartments and lodges within the subsidized market for fixed or low-income seniors. And then and who pays for that? Or, within independent living, it's either going to be subsidized housing or private pay. And private pay will be the independent, assisted living, retirement residence options. And then the middle green one there, supported living. So there's the Alberta Health Services Type B, as well as private pay. So it's either going to be the AHS co-funded or private pay where you're paying all of it out of your pocket. And then long-term care. So we all know it as long-term care with AHS. It is now called Type B. And then there's also within the private pay market, it's called enhanced care. And there's a huge difference. We're finding, the reality is most of us need to consider AHS when it comes to that very highest level of care, because a private pay place for enhanced care averages between $10,000 and $15,000 a month for that high level of care. Now that's not assisted living, that's higher level of care, like a lift and a 2-person transfer and maybe feeding assist and what you all would imagine as sort of nursing home or high level of care. It's possible within private pay. There's the smallest handful of buildings in the city that provide that, and the cost is really quite something. Next slide. So independent living, I'll whip through these slides. These are just some descriptions, I guess, of independent living. They're for the active independent seniors who can direct their own care, subsidized self-contained apartments or lodges. So within the subsidized market, there is an income threshold. You have to apply it's heartbreaking for me, but right now, for example, Silvera is telling people 5 to 7 years. So we talk about the challenge of availability with Alberta Health Services funded beds, and we're seeing the same thing with subsidized housing. So the idea of applying and getting on a wait list is crucial. They base it on a priority rating system, but nevertheless, it's not happening fast, even for somebody who's a priority. And we're seeing that way more than we did in the past. So it's a very unsettled system right now. Supported living, so that's where there's 24-hour nursing support on site. Some buildings have both private pay options as well as units or rooms that are under the Alberta Health Services funded category. Right now, Alberta Health Services, for their Type B or their Type A long-term care, it's about between $2,400 and $2,500 a month that you are paying out of pocket. AHS is paying the rest. They are studios only. So this is another thing that happens that is tough when a couple and one of them needs to move, or one of them needs a higher level of care, and a couple says, we really want to stay together. It's pretty much impossible within the AHS funded category. They are studios only. In all my years doing this, when I know that a building says we have a couple suite, which is a 1-bedroom suite, or 2 studios that are joined, I haven't yet seen a couple that can move into one together because of availability. So that's something else to consider with your options when you know that as a husband and wife, you want to be able to stay together as the health journey changes. They don't allow pets, and of course the buildings have no smoking, but within AHS, they're not allowing pets. And then there is secure dementia care. And then under the private pay, they range really from $3,100 up to $16,000 a month for private assisted living. And they range in suite sizes. There's studios, 1 bedrooms, 1+ dens, 2 bedrooms. And the meal programs and the amenities that are offered they vary also between buildings. There's a very high demand for 2-bedroom suites, and there's not as many. So often that requires a wait list. And this is another reason why it's valuable to do some research in advance. And we welcome people to do that research in advance. I have a couple and they said, we want to look and we want to see what's out there and we want to know what we like, but we're not planning to move for 10 years. And so we did that, and they researched, they toured places, and they still haven't moved, but they're just keeping an eye on things, and they've got a good feel for it. And so I think they'll feel more ready when they want to, right? Like they're gonna know what to expect, and it's giving them some peace of mind. And then there's both secure and open concept for dementia care. Sorry, that's okay. Long-term care, that's when the complex medical support requiring transfers, possibly a mechanical lift. Significant incontinence is a big one. If they're a high fall risk or more advanced or complex dementia, it's going to be the same cost in about the $2,400 to $2,500 range. Definitely long wait lists. What we're seeing right now is they're not even allowing you to wait list for a preferred location. It's crisis placement from hospital is what AHS is managing right now. So, if someone said, okay, well, can we just get on a list and they'll say no. Now, we're also seeing too is that make the 911 call, have that person go to the hospital, and now the system will help them. And that's a very traumatic process for most people to have to start like that. So again, doing your research, gathering your information, and understanding what the possibilities are, and next steps, whether you need them or not. It's good to learn about them, right? And again, there's more flexibility and control of decision if you went with private care, but in this category, it's incredibly expensive. So, it's hard. So understanding even that AHS system and process is helpful, because you may find yourself having to navigate that down the road. So some things to consider. There is the aging in place idea, of course, whether that's staying at home, but even in the choice of a retirement residence, there are buildings that have independent living, and you can go in independently, and there is care on site if needed, or care in a different building, like beside it. So one example is Trico. They've got 2 buildings. They're joined by the amenity spaces in the middle. But one side of the building is independent living and the other side is assisted living. And so there's quite a variety of the way services are being provided within the private retirement residence sector. You can, what we're meaning when we say mixing and matching public and private, that's going to apply to care. People that have AHS home care may top it up with supports from a private agency. Some of that was bridged with the client-directed care, but sometimes not all of it. Someone may need AHS for a little bit during the day, but the big challenge is night, so maybe a private agency is hired to do overnights. Understanding your financial position. So if it means talking to a financial advisor, but to try to plan and understand for these numbers and these prices and to know how long they'll last. We don't want someone going, "Ooh, I saw that place. My friend moved in there. I love that. I'm going to move in." And then 2 years later, they're like, "I'm out of money. I don't know what to do." So we don't want that to happen either. And again, timing. Timing is important, right? Do you want the timing of being able to embrace the lifestyle and for your own self that maybe an independent community offers more for your mental well-being possibly than living at home alone, isolated. Or living at home is a wonderful thing for you. And then, what are the supports that can come into you at home? Next slide. So finding the best fit, this is a big one. It's so important to try and find a good fit. When people do find a good fit when they move, people thrive, their longevity is improved. We hear this all the time. I wish I would have done it sooner. I had no idea it was going to be this awesome. And then, again, that relationship with family, right? Like it can give peace of mind to the entire family sometimes. And when it's a bad fit, people are unhappy and disengaged. And yes, there is an adjustment period. It is something to get used to in the beginning. So you can't move in for the most part and a week later go, "I still don't know anybody. I don't like this. I don't know who to sit with at meal times, and I don't like it, and I want to leave. I hate it. This was a bad idea." It's going to take time, right? You need some time to adjust. And they might wish they were somewhere else if they're not happy where they're at. And moving multiple times, oh man, like moving once is hard enough, but to move 2 or 3 times because you are not happy where you are is very, very hard. And then, of course, understanding the finances so that move works for you. Next slide. So timing is important. The application process for subsidized and the wait list process or the length of waiting or getting into your preferred location is incredibly long. So it's both for the subsidized and the public. And then the private wait lists, we're seeing more and more wait lists. And then the escalating costs, of course. And then there's assessments. Like I'm working with somebody right now, and what their expectations are for where they want to move, and they're not going to be able to. So they're not this person is not recognizing their level of health, and an assessment is going to clear up the concerns, but I'm the only one seeing this right now. So it's a really challenging process at the moment for this person, because she's left it so long that now her choices are very limited. And so it's already been difficult, and I know we're almost, like I'm gearing up for stage 2 of how much harder this is going to get for her. And this, we really feel bad about that. When you move earlier, you're preserving that choice, right? And by that we mean that you are, with the private pay market, you're in control of the decision. You might be kind of ready to explore. You look at 6 places and you go, I like that one, and I want that room, and you may wait list or you may not, and you've made that choice and you can decide to move in there. If your health situation changes or is advanced enough, then you may not have that choice, right? You're going to be going to where the care is. So you can enjoy the lifestyle longer, again, within independent living, and then understanding and knowing what your triggers and your tipping point are. It could be that you're in a home with stairs and you decide, you know what, I am managing my daily life, but when the day comes that walk up the stairs or coming down was scary, then it's time to consider maybe making a move to a place that doesn't have stairs, right? So, you need to consider. And I often find, there was something actually that Reverend Bill said today too that triggered it, but we're so afraid of the unknowns and don't want to talk about the future, and we want to hang in there and not need more, but we can't escape whatever our own aging journey is. And by gathering the information and understanding in advance, then you're going to feel better about knowing versus avoiding it all and not wanting to talk about it. And, it might be hard to understand that, but it's so worth knowing that information. Next slide. So if there are any questions, I know that, there's a ton of information. I would be happy to answer any questions. I know we have brochures here, and if there's any questions right now, I would be happy to answer them. No way. Oh, what? Okay, so for those that didn't hear, the question is, it's a catch-22. I'm saying start early, gather the research, and then I'm saying, but you can't get on a wait list. So yes, so within the private pay market, so whether it's understanding various buildings or places close to you, etc., independent living or assisted living, you can gather that information and potentially, so let's say it's husband and wife and they're like, we would love to, when we move, we want a 2-bedroom suite, we want underground parking, we want this and that, and the choice of amenities, great. When you research that and see those places that offer that, you can go, great. So let's say it's a year from now and you're like, it's getting a little harder here at home. Why don't we just revisit? We really liked those 2 places that we saw. Let's just, revisit and consider them. Then you can do that. Or if you made a decision to go on a wait list for a 2-bedroom because there's a long wait list for 2 bedrooms, you can do that. That's private pay. With AHS funded, you're not able to say in advance, we want to be on a wait list. But let's say it's a couple. One of you's got some dementia, and yes, the future is unknown. The dementia journey is unknown. But if you are having conversations with the AHS case manager and talking about, like, as it's getting a little more difficult, you can maybe say, like, can we talk about an assessment for placement and get on a possible list. Like right now, they're not doing the list. They're kind of saying, well, we're going to wait until it's so bad that there's a hospital visit and then we'll do it. So it's not ideal right now. But if anything, having the conversation and understanding sort of what to expect, because we hear it all the time. We'll have a phone call and they'll say, my dad's in the hospital and we don't know what's going on. Like, we're kind of waiting. Nobody said anything. We don't know if they're moving. We don't know what's next, etc. We can very clearly help them understand, okay, well, it's going to be this and then this, and this will be the next step, and this is what they'll tell you next. And so even the understanding, it's not always about being able to make every decision and have control over every single decision, but even in understanding that process and what that could be like. So hopefully we're going to see some changes and differences to the AHS side of things where they can get back to saying, give us your top 3 choices, let's get you on a list. Hopefully we'll see that. But you have most control over your decisions and your choices and your preferences in the private pay market. Yeah.
If you need more care, is your choice only AHS or private, or does AHS help if needed financially, and you go private?
Yeah. So there's AHS home care, and they focus on those handful of tasks. So it could be medications, compression stockings, shower assist, AM and PM dressing. If it's AHS home care, they come in, do it, leave. Then AHS started this client-directed care. So that same AHS case manager, like if there's anyone in here that has currently or dealing with AHS for home care, and if you're wondering if client-directed care is a possibility for you, then you can just ask that same case manager that you're already working with and say, can you tell me about client-directed care? So client-directed care, AHS is funding about $34 an hour right now toward that hourly rate from the private agency that you've brought in. So let's say AHS says you get 12 hours a week. We will help pay for 12 hours a week. You can do that. The private agency bills Alberta Blue Cross directly. If it's an agency that charges $40, then they will send you an invoice for $6 an hour for those 12 hours. But if it's working well and you want to increase it, then you can say to the private agency, you know what, I love this, we could use the help like from 7 till 10 p.m., 4 days a week. Then the agency can provide that for you. You'll pay the full amount because AHS isn't going to cover that part. They've said they'll cover 12 hours. So, but the goal of AHS, what we're starting to see is these little changes. Client-directed care was one of them, where they are trying to find a way to provide the additional support for seniors in their home, because they know full well there's no room in any of their, like there's wait lists and it's challenging for their assisted living and long-term care buildings. So they're trying to find a way to bridge that gap and try and keep people at home longer.
At home, right?
Correct.
If now get to a point that you have to get more care in a private facility, for example, will AHS provide some financial support to that or not?
Not in a private pay retirement residence. So if you went to an assisted living and were paying $6,000 a month, AHS is not covering that. If you needed assisted living and you're like, my budget can't handle $6,000 a month, then you would be working with AHS under their program of assisted living type B locations. And then your out-of-pocket is about $2,400, and they are paying the rest. But that is for their AHS-funded buildings and units that are within a building. Go ahead.
We boomers are all in a position now where we're starting to need this kind of care. And I know the healthcare system didn't plan in advance. This has been coming for a long time. We now are seeing that we need these assisted ways of living somewhere down the road, and the availability or lack thereof is due to non-planning, really. So in a case like, let's say my husband and I are in our own home right now, but can see down the road that we'd like to go somewhere where possibly there's more care for us, either physically, and we don't know what the future holds, but we know we're declining physically. We know we are not as able, though we love the home, to look after things there. And so to look ahead and say, all right, in 3 years, like you were talking about 10 years, but in 3 years, I would like to be in a certain place. Do you have people that are knowledgeable about where these places are being built? Because I know they're springing up all over the place as the need is being responded to. Mm-hmm. Are there people that would counsel with a couple like us and say, okay, where precisely do you want to be? And then B, I will look for developments in that area. I guess what I'm asking is, do you have inside information about things like that?
Yes, I can introduce you to somebody right now. So that is what we do, okay, at Proactive Seniors. So I am a housing advisor. So when I meet with someone, I am finding out the important information, like what area of the city, if you have an idea of budget. We talk about health concerns only to the degree of helping you understand, because I could have somebody with incredibly high health needs, but they've heard about that building down the road, but that building is only independent living. We will discuss the fact that if you choose to move into an independent living, knowing care is in your future, then you just need to know you'll move again. Some people are happy with that. They're like, I don't care. And others are like, oh, I'm not moving again. So they want to go somewhere where they may start off independently, and then the care's on site if they need it. So that is what we do. This talk isn't meant to be a sales pitch. Like the Kirby, the Unison Housing Directory, is there. Like, it's quite the thing to navigate if none of you have ever looked. We've had people, like, it's listed all the places, but within that information you need to sort of sift and go, well, is that going to make sense for me, right? Like I have an example. I have a son who was trying to help his mom, and the son said to me, he said, like, I got that housing directory. I don't know, like, I don't get it. I couldn't figure it out. And he said, I went and visited 3 places and nothing made sense. Well, I said, oh, what 3 did you go to? Well, and it happened that he went to an AHS-funded place, and nobody wanted to talk to him because they won't. They'll tell you to go talk to your case manager. He went to a subsidized building for low income, and he was like, I don't think that's what I want. And then an assisted living. And it was independent living that he was trying to find for his mom. But so it can be hard. So, you know, yes, the advisors that can help you do all the work for you, right? So you say, this is where we want to be. This is stuff we want in our suite. Here's our budget. Here's our health. Go do the homework and let us know what you find. That's what we do. Yeah. Even for Kelowna.
I have a question.
And now Kamloops and Saskatoon. And
I have a question around income tax. What assisted living, can you claim some of that on income tax? Like AHS is, if you do the combo thing you're talking about, right? AHS is providing X amount of care at government expense. And I'm going to offset it. I want to augment it by another 10 hours a week for prescribed care, for care that's required. Can I claim that on income tax?
Yes, you can. So you would ask that private agency for a statement of the care costs for the year.
Right.
Yeah, and you can claim it.
Okay. Do most people know that?
I don't know.
Like any talk I've ever heard being at, they never talk about that. And money is the biggest issue in preventing seniors from going forward, particularly women, because most women do not have good pension plans.
Yeah.
They've been in the workforce, but they have not had a pension plan. And so how we finance ourselves is key to decisions that we make along the way.
Yeah, I agree. But also, it's quite individual. I don't know if that's why people hesitate to give a blanket, here's what you can do, or here's what you can claim, because it's, you know, it's going to be different for one than the other. But I know, like my first 11 years, I was in private care. And every year we had people getting a statement from us from the costs, that they could claim. Also, I will say, so talking about AHS funded, so this can happen that causes a little bit of panic with seniors. So knowing that right now the monthly amount you're expecting to pay is about $2,400, if you're an individual with a pension income of, say, $2,000 a month, you're like, well, what the heck? Like, who's going to take care of me if AHS, if it's this much, I don't have that much. Through the Alberta Seniors Benefit, there's an accommodation benefit. And so when AHS is reviewing with you your finances, if they need to bump up your Alberta Seniors Benefit with this accommodation benefit, they will do that to make sure that an AHS-funded building that provides the care for you will be accessible to you. Yeah. Wilma?
But I
Sorry, 1 sec. Oops. Whoop, sorry.
Or did it go down to 55?
For subsidized?
For anything.
Well,
when we're
AHS
looking at
is
seniors.
different. Yeah, no, AHS, if you need the care, you need the care. It's a care decision with AHS.
Yes.
Subsidized, they used to take younger seniors, and we're seeing a lot of them that said it used to be 60 plus, now it's 65. It's because the demand is so high. There's such a high number of people over 65 that now there's this gray area of, 55 to 65 are like, well, what do we do, right? So, yeah, it's pretty tough. But as far as AHS, it's not an age-related decision when it comes to the care.
Right, okay, so how does it apply when it comes to the building?
What building? What do you mean?
Well, like
Sorry.
if you're renting a place, is it 65 is the cutoff? If you're younger than that, you don't get in?
In the subsidized market, we're seeing people not getting in because they're not 65.
Okay.
Yeah, subsidized. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I missed something. It sounds to me like with AHS, you really have to wait until you have to go before they take any action.
Yes.
So that's not really a planning thing. That's a waiting until you need help kind of thing.
Well, I know finances are going to be part of the decision. I get that. But what's an example? Here's another example. You may choose to go to a private pay assisted living because maybe you need some help. You're recognizing that. You can't yet pursue the AHS because they're saying, not yet. You also have the option to move to pay for private pay assisted living, for example, while getting on a wait list or getting into the process with AHS so that, healthcare needs, you'll be eligible for AHS. So you can choose it or get control of it privately if your budget can sustain it. The way AHS does it is you may not be on a wait list for one of their, say, assisted living type B places, but they're going to know that things are changing because unless it's some drastic event that takes you from healthy to needing help, then if you're at home and you're needing more, they're providing home care. So they're coming in. Maybe they're starting off at 2 hours a week. We don't see the very high hours too often, but we have a client right now with 40 hours a week of home care because AHS is trying to keep adding more, keep them at home, and they're going to reach that point where they're going to say, you've maxed out your home care hours. You need to be in a type B assisted living. You need to be somewhere where there's care on site 24/7. So that communication is happening, but you couldn't decide way in advance that it would be handy for you to get on a wait list for that building that's right down the street because that's the perfect location. They're just not allowing the advance wait list.
I'm very impressed with proactive seniors. You haven't said anything yet about cost. So when do we start paying you folks for your
our
services?
Yep. So we have our housing support fee covers our entire process. And so I'll give you an example. The 10-year client, they paid when we first started, but I check in and we have little chats and stuff, and this is ongoing, and that didn't change the fee. So our housing fee for the process is $850 plus GST, and that is for however long you need us. And then if it's a brief consultation, so let's say we have an hourly fee. Let's say somebody's in the hospital and you reach out and go, oh my goodness, like we don't know. We're trying to figure this out. We've thought of these three. We don't know if we're on the right track. Can we just consult with you for a bit? Then we would do an hourly fee. We've done that, if it's just an hour or two, and we're giving them some guidance and consultation, then we'll do that for an hourly fee. Yep. And if, for subsidized, I'll say the subsidized market really changed a couple of years ago. the housing associations all had their own application, and it was quite, nobody was working together. So I would help, I would fill out applications for a person, I would advocate for them, etc. And then a couple of years ago, they created this online portal. So now someone can just go on this, apply online, and it's, I mean, for some it's easy, for some it's not. But the Kirby Center, like, I'll have to say, we operate from our hearts, all of us at Proactive Seniors. So I will help before I even say, well, I'm not going to help you without a fee or hourly fee. We'll talk. I've done many half-hour conversations, and just, you know that you've pointed somebody in the right direction, and we're not going to nickel and dime and play around with that, right? Especially for subsidized, because we just care that people connect to the resources they need. So we will do that. Like the Kirby Center, the Unison Kirby will help people fill out that application for subsidized. So I'll tell people that. Like, it's not my goal to get you to come and pay an hour for me to do it for you. So we'll help. Yep. Is that it for oh, one more question back there.
As I go driving around, I see open houses. I usually find out about the open house after it's taken place. So what I was wondering, is there, because we're probably at the stage we're looking, and there's so many places to choose from, and so many things you don't know about that you should take into account. So while you are at the stage that you can look and realize what you need and the costs and everything else, and your family goes, so you have to know, I need an open house to go to see if I even like the place.
Do you know what I recommend? Like, I know the open houses can be fun, but even myself, I would, here's what might be nicer for you, is if there's a place that you want to go check out, just call and say, can I book a time to meet with the salesperson and go and have a tour? So that's the word, is having a tour, because number one, that salesperson gives you one-on-one attention. They're going to answer your specific questions. If you're walking around and they're having a tour and you're just wondering about, I don't know, about health-related things, or do you guys do this, or what about that, right? Like, you'll have that, like, I like having the one-on-one attention, because with an open house, it's this blur, and you might be kind of wanting, oh, but I have a question, and it's not getting answered because they're bustling around with a crowd of people there. And so if you want to, like, I think you should just call them and say, can I come for a tour? And they will book a time with you, and you'll have that one-on-one attention of the person.
Yeah, that's probably because there's hundreds of opportunities in different directions that you don't know about.
Yeah.
And so they open up a lot of doors.
Yeah.
That are
and a tour and lunch. I mean, you know, I don't know, sometimes with an open house, people are like, but I want to go for the free refreshments. Go for it. Say, I want to have lunch because food is important to me. So I want to try lunch while I go for my tour. Okay? Thank you. I don't even know what time.
Testing 1, 2.
Thank you. This has been incredibly informative. There's so much information. It's actually mind-boggling. But I really appreciate your coming, Judy. It's been fantastic. So you've all gotten a brochure. I think I was able to reach everybody with the brochure. So you have Judy's number. But I have a question. How many people are there working with you? Are you doing this by yourself?
No. So Kathy has 3 others. So Kathy and 3 others are part of the planning team. Heather and myself and our newest colleague, Maureen, are the housing advisors. And then we have various sort of, I'm going to call them outer edge people on our team. Like we've got a pharmacist, occupational therapy. We've got, and I did forget to say, there's not a question you have that we can't answer, because part of our service is connecting you to all the resources. So for example, here's an example. Somebody with dementia and your family doctor doesn't want to do a capacity assessment because they don't want to be the bad guy, then we have a connection to a health professional that can do a capacity assessment. So there's just honestly random things that we can certainly, that we have connections to.
There's just more information. The more questions there are, there's more information. Thank you, Judy, very much. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
coming. Yes,
Thank you,
take
Anne,
care.
and thank you, everybody, for giving me your time. I don't know if it ran over. I hope for any of you that needed it, I hope you had a nice nap through it. If I had my phone, I have the best joke that I would close it off with, but it would take me too long to get it now. But anyway, maybe next time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
A lot of questions, but I was going to keep it going. It cut it off eventually.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm still.